And that to me proves that the podcast establishment is not really an establishment, because you can be criticized for one little mistake you make.
And then every week, we're going to be back on here. We're going to have to talk about it. If it's a big enough story, we're going to have a conversation about it.
And you have to address it. You have to correct it. Like, has to be some type of recourse.
The way, notice how when Alex Media, the only co-host who actually pushes back a little bit, when he makes a good point, the comedy stops and Andrew gets very serious. But at the very least, he was actually pushing back because no one else was, especially when Andrew was repeating the most insane and delusional Rogan Sphere talking points, which is this idea, this narrative that anyone could just quit their job and start a podcast and be massively successful. And so because of that, there's no reason for anyone to be mad or jealous or broke because they could just start a podcast. They look at themselves and think, I did it. But that's what makes a comedian a Rogan Sphere comedian. They completely forget that the only reason why they're as successful as they are is because of Rogan or someone else. For example, back then, Charlemagne was the first one who gave Andrew his audience, and then Andrew used that to begin his own podcast. Then he met Joe Rogan thanks to Brendan Schaub and completely blew up. He became rich, successful, and famous, and now his podcast and his audience are way bigger than his show with Charlemagne the God. And so with that said, it is interesting how nobody called out how much Joe Rogan has helped him out and how massive the Rogan bump is, and how if the lady from CNN had the same access to Joe Rogan and his podcast and his audience, she would likely be very successful on her own too.